I'll just like to show you that we are in the heart of New Delhi. This is where all the G20 action is happening. In fact, we were late by a few minutes because there was a delegation that was just passing through. You never really get to see Delhi like this. The roads are empty. The trees are decked up with flowers. You can see them be right behind me. They're beautiful marigold garlands that have been put up on these trees, which is really stunning. And we had thought of a really lovely location for you to bring this show to you. We had a very lovely location to come across to you, but we were asked to run away from there. So well, okay, I have Mr. Sabhnavis with me. Madan, you know, we've been talking so much about this G20 presidency. Of course, the time at which India took over this presidency was a very difficult time. We were barely getting out of the pandemic, and then, you know, there's a war that's going on. Economically speaking,
no, I think this is quite important because G20 is something which has been in existence for a long time, but I don't think it's been taken too seriously. So I think what India has done is that we have done this on a very large scale. The idea is also to set a precedent for the next few meetings, whichever are held, wherever they are held. Now, the main purpose of this is to bring about more economic as well as political cooperation. And I think that's the main agenda for the G20. And today we have seen that when we talk of economic agenda, it's not just pure economics, but we also get into other issues like ESG, environment, which comes into the picture, how better cooperation between countries is able to overall do certain good for humanity at large. Also, since a lot of economic problems are not just domestic, but they also hold for other countries, I think this is a very good platform to actually sort it out. I don't expect that there will be any kind of miracles happening, but I think our contribution will be mainly seen from the fact that we have actually set the tone for making G20 more relevant, and so that the other nations who take it on subsequently will be able to continue with this kind of thrust which India has given. So to that extent, I think we have done a very good job, and I think this was really necessary because we've had a number of get-togethers of various groups of countries, which doesn't really come to much except having meetings and nothing else but that. But here, I think we are giving a lot of direction to it, and I think full credit to the government and all the people who have been involved with this particular exercise, because I think we're looking at the way in which India's position, yes, we are the fastest growing economy. We are going to set the agenda for the rest of the world to follow. We have all the large countries which are also here at this particular meeting here in Delhi. And I think when this final round of these deliberations do take place, I think there's a lot of scope to find common ground on which we can keep pushing this agenda forward. So I think this is something which will be eagerly
well, we can only hope. Right, absolutely. We can only hope that there is common ground and there is consensus that emerges. Let me go across to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh, many thanks for joining us. You have been part of several G20 meetings. You have been at the helm of foreign policy. I want to understand from you, Mr. Singh, on, you know, the significance of these 2 days and this entire year of India's G20 presidency, because it came to us at a very difficult time across the world, and India, in its own unique way, has emerged as the voice of the global South. It's taken on some issues head on. I want to get a sense from you on how much is at stake for India here.
Look, we must understand that we can enlarge the agenda as much as we want, but essentially, well, it's a question of projecting India. It's projecting India's approach to different problems in the world, and we think that probably reflects the global South's problems better. And that's why we said African Union should have a seat there, a permanent seat. But essentially, what is conditioning the discussion is the Ukraine war and the US-China relations. And the fact that President Xi Jinping is not here, the fact that President Putin is not here, those are conditioning the outcomes because they will affect whether you can reach a consensus or not. Amitabh Kant today was sort of, humming and hawing, but essentially they still haven't reached a consensus because on Ukraine war, the Chinese and the Russians are not even willing to accept the Bali language. I believe the Saudis have come in to say you can't talk about fossil fuels or replacing them. So there'll be all kinds of people amongst the 20, and because you operate by consensus, you'll get a minimum program. You'll not get a maximum. So India can put all they want on the table. That's fine. That projects India. But how it goes forward will depend on what kind of a consensus we can reach. On a few things, India is strong where there won't be any disagreement. One is digital empowerment, where India has done very well, financial inclusion, which can go to the developing countries, an example for Africa or other countries, how to do the financial inclusion. I think those are examples which, things like traditional medicine, certainly the European countries are not going to accept it. You haven't done due diligence. FDA in America is not going to accept it. So you'll have to have your own years and years of showing that what works, what doesn't work. It's okay in India for us to do it, but to globalize it, you can talk about it, but it won't be immediately accepted by the G7. And then comes in, of course, the Ukraine war. We are on the fence. We are neither with one nor with the other. We have reduced oil imports from Russia. But essentially, these two things are fracturing the unity. Until there is unity, you can't operate on it. And then there is a slowdown of the Chinese economy. Probably one of the reasons Xi hasn't come is he's got domestic troubles. And if the second biggest economy of the world is slowing down, their exports are definitely down the last 7 months. The exports of Taiwan to them are down. Exports of ROK, Republic of Korea to China are down. So you can see it's a very difficult external environment. We can't keep thinking we are growing, so the whole world will come to us. Yes, they are interested in India. Global agenda will be a minimalist thing that will be acceptable.
Okay, but I want to understand that, this is a step forward from what happened in Bali, because Bali was also very contentious, and we saw a lot of conflict there as well. But and you're absolutely right. It's almost like the G7 is on one side and India is on the other side, and India has been sitting on the fence when it comes to the war with Ukraine. But if we look at the way we've gone about this presidency, and when we speak with people in the government, they talk about how it's people's presidency and the 200 odd meetings that have happened across the country. That is a big step forward. India's digital infrastructure that is being showcased. Mobile phones are going to be given to all the G20 delegates, the phones will have a UPI app installed and some Indian rupees, and the delegates can go shopping I was talking to Ms. Lekhi this morning, and she was telling me so that they can get a sense of how India shops. So one gets a sense that yes, broad consensus is what would be ideal, but India has also used this as an opportunity to showcase that it really means business and what it has emerged to become. As in, this is the sense that one gets when one talks to the government. But I want to go across to Mr. Sabhnavis and Mr. Singh on this, that how does this alter India's perception, India's standing in the world, the fact that India has emerged as a voice in the global south. Does this place India differently in the global world order?
No, I think it definitely does. And I think that's what I look at it from. See, there are two ways of looking at it. One is to say that we are showcasing India, we're talking of the strengths which we have. We talk of the kind of achievements, the kind of templates which we are setting for other developing economies. So I think that's one part of the agenda which the government has been pushing. But G20 is a case of other 19 nations who are there. So there are certain common issues on the economic front. Of course, on the political front, I wouldn't really know what to say, because when it comes to politics, it's very difficult to sort out in this kind of a forum. So therefore, if we're talking of a Ukraine war, it has not been solved for over 1.5 years. So I don't think there will be any meaningful discussion also. And probably this is not the right forum for it. But when you're talking of anything on the economy side, on the economic side, as to how we bring about more global integration, I think this is the forum. Because what we have seen is that in the last few years, especially after the pandemic, there has been a tendency for us to all step back from globalization. So I'm not going to say that things are going to change from day after tomorrow, and countries are all going to start going back towards freer trade and freer investment. That's not going to take place. But I think the discussion, the dialogue is something which has to be kept on. Similarly, when you're talking on issues of global warming, I think all of us have been talking of it. We all know how severe it is. But having meaningful discussions out there generally puts everybody on the same page. Now, it will, of course, take years before anything meaningful comes out. But if you don't have a discussion, you don't have a dialogue, you don't move forward. That's the way I look at it.
Right. So I want to go across to Mr. Singh on this. G20 has been about economic policies, right? And deglobalization has been the mantra for the last few years now. in your view, do you think this meeting will reset that? Will there be the difficult conversations or negotiations on this front that, okay, we need to again embrace free movement of goods and services? Is that something that India should take on aggressively, Mr. Singh?
No, I don't think it's going to work. If China is not here, if the whole intention is to contain China, of which Americans have made absolutely very clear, all the legislation they passed, all the transfer of high technology, the Europeans are also more or less aligned with them, restricting Belt and Road Initiative. Two things, Jake Sullivan, when President took off, US President took off from America, he said two things. One is that we are interested in multilateral financial institutions. I think they're looking at IMF, World Bank, any combination of Quad, which is able to bring in development assistance to the developing world, because they want to rival the Chinese. They realize the space has been left open to China. And they, through Belt and Road Initiative, pushed ahead, although they've created a lot of difficulties for themselves, because a lot of these projects have gone topside down, and therefore there is a debt which has built up. World Bank has been pushing the Chinese, IMF and World Bank, to take a haircut. Till now, they were not willing to do it. They've just done it in case of one country, because most of the lending has been done by their banks. And they're already having a serious problem with the real estate and the debt building up in the banks there. So in a difficult situation like this, Americans are not they will push. They are not going to give any relief to China at this stage. That settlement will have to be between China and America. Now, she has not come here. Otherwise, I'm sure Biden and she would have met. They might meet in San Francisco. I don't know whether she will go there for the meeting, which is coming up later. So, but this environment, there's very little India can do as a referee in all this, as the one chairing it, if the big boys are not interested in aligning their global visions on how they have to move forward. I mean, we are probably more on the side of the Chinese as far as global trade or WTO rules are concerned. But then the Chinese finger us. They are the ones who published a map. They are the ones who embarrassed Prime Minister by saying India asked for a meeting. So if the Chinese are in that kind of a mood, how do you play the referee? Where exactly you do it? So there's going to be a minimalist kind of thing on some other themes. Like I said, digital, this thing, everybody will agree, that's fine. On public health, pandemics, you've got COVID re-emerging in America, to the extent that President Biden's own wife got it. So she's not accompanying him because she became COVID positive. So the danger is still lurking of pandemic, of same pandemic or another pandemic. Those are issues. And then Ukraine war is creating two other problems, which is energy and food crisis. Now, they can't be solved. Just now, there's a meeting between the Turkish president and Putin, and they didn't come to any agreement on opening up the grain sales, allowing Ukraine to export almost 20-30 million tons of wheat. Where else will the wheat come from? So these issues all go back to basic friction points, and the solutions lie in resolving those friction points. But till those are evolved, you can't find a solution to them of a permanent nature.
Mm-hmm. Right. Very quickly, my last, final few questions on this. So, should we say that China has dampened India's G20 party? And while, we've been talking about reforms of multilateral banks as an important agenda-setting topic, we've been talking about, India's digital infrastructure. We are showcasing that. Does all of that get overshadowed by the fact that China did not participate in the negotiations? Mr. Sabhnavis.
No, I really don't think so. See, definitely China not participating is a setback, but something which could have been expected also. Just like saying that would Mr. Putin have come over here, it was not really expected. And I think the last thing that they would like to discuss in the open is what they should be doing with Ukraine, or the kind of problem which China has with the rest of the world. So I think we have to look at the broader picture, and G20 is not supposed to be having solutions on the table after 48 hours. It's more a case of making sure that they're giving direction to certain issues which can be taken on in future. So it's a very slow process. It's not things which are sorted out that easy. It's not looking just at contemporary issues, but are taking a slightly longer term view. So one could be cynical about these kind of G20s, G7s, and BRICS, which we had some time back, that nothing much really happens, because we have seen decades of these get-togethers, these associations, and we have not really seen too much coming out of it. But I think the kind of credit which India should get for it is reviving all these issues and trying to say, okay, there are certain issues on which there will be no conversation, there will be no solution. Let's keep that at a background, but that's not what all it is. So if China is not there, there are the other 19 nations, 18 nations which are there, along which one could be carrying on discussions. So I would be a bit more positive about what's happening out here, because I'm not expecting any kind of miracles or solutions to be found in 48 hours' time.